On our first day, we shared with you how children fully participate in telling what they know, want to know, learn, and what they are still curious about with KWLS charts.
Children tell stories all the time to everyone, especially when they're respected, loved, joyful, and are given time to tell stories to people whom listen. When young children scribble and start to draw, they also have stories to tell. Teachers are encouraged to sit with children while they write and draw. As children work, teachers might begin to ask them to tell their story.
Teachers write down children's stories in children's own words and read the stories back to them. Children usually also share these stories during review. This is an essential way to build early literacy skills.
Another essential literacy skill is to hear stories. Children like to listen to stories told by their family members, older sisters and brothers, neighbors, and their teachers. Children love to read and listen to books when books are interesting and meaningful to them.
At Bright School and in high-quality classrooms all over the world, teachers tell stories and read books every day with children. The result? Children are eager to figure out how reading and writing work. They love literacy.
The first step for teachers or families is to choose a good book or story to tell. What are the characteristics of a good storybook and story? Here are some of the main elements. Title. A great title is memorable and matches the theme of the story, like Cups for Sale, Are You My Mother, Bumping Buffalo, or Mama Panya's Pancakes are intriguing. Popular topics. We already talked about themes that interest children. You will learn from KWL's charts what children in your class are most interested in learning about.
Characters. Look for animals or people that are good role models, or silly, or that the children you know can easily relate to, like their families. Narrative or plot. Good stories make you want to find out what happens next, such as resolution of a conflict, and then have a satisfying ending. Setting. That's where the story takes place. Children everywhere learn about places, cities, oceans, farms, climates, wildlife preserves, houses, near and far when they hear stories and see illustrations.
Huge horns kicked up the clouds of hay. It was
Audience or voice. Good stories appeal to the audience who will read or hear them. Sometimes stories are told in first person. Dialogue. Conversation are dramatic voices or sounds in stories make situations seem like lion roars, bird was, mama are kind, buses and trucks whoop. Words and pictures match. Make sure the illustration show what is happening on those pages and get the details correct. Many children's books are illustrated with beautiful art. Great stories end either with a solution or a surprise. Baby bird finds its mother. The princess gets married. One little pig eats the wolf for dinner.
Let's use these criteria right away. Watch while this Bright School teacher reads a book to his pre-primary class. While Lambert is reading the book, write down some of the elements of a good book that this book has.
kubasomera yitwa ninde watubwira Romeo yagize tugiye gusoma inkuru yitwa The 12 Dancing Princess. Okay, reka turebe. Yes, tubonemo abantu benshi cyane sibyo ngo barengeranye we kandi koko ntibari bambaye agapfukamunwa twese tukambara reka dusome yenga dusome muri kuvugira muri teacher kandi agiye kubabwira inkuru nziza iravuga ngo there was one king who had 12 beautiful daughters. Ngo hariho umunsi umwe turi gusoma igitabo. Hariho umunsi umwe umwami yari afite abakobwa bangahe? Abakobwa cumi na bangahe? Bari bambaye imyenda imeze kimwe. Itatu ngani mwicare kurikiye. Hari abari bambaye imyenda isa gute imeze neza, abandi bari bambaye isite ikanzu. Uvuga ngo umwami rero yari afite abakobwa 12 bari beza shaho. Musikuru bari beza. Reka turebe muratekereza barakoze iki? Bari begeranye batambaye agapfukamunwa nkamwe, niyo mpamvu tugiye kwambara agapfukamunwa twese neza. Turebe tugiye kureba byagenze sibyo? Tubonye iki? Uri gukingiriza abana b'imbere. Twicare. Yes, twese twicare sibyo? Bari bambaye inkweto zisa gute? Hano hari izirimo.
Now that you have a better idea about what to consider when choosing a book or a story to tell children, take a quick break to find a book or think of a good story.
After you picked a good book or story, here are some steps to follow when you read books or tell stories with group or young children. More details are in your handout. 1. Pick captivating books or stories, realistic or imaginary. 2. Find props such as shoes, scarves, or pretend animals to add realism to the story. 3. Read a book before you read it to children. 4. Find out how to pronounce any new words.
Number 5, hold the book so all children can see the words and the pictures. 6, quickly point out the names of the author and illustrators. 7, ask children to look or listen for 1 or 2 key ideas, illustrations, or words. With the book that Lambert read, you could ask children to watch for what the princesses do every night. Why are their shoes worn out by morning? Number 8, read in children's home language. Translate as needed.
Number 9, show very young children how to carefully turn each page. 10. Often ask children to describe what they see in the pictures. What do you see on this page? 11. Use sounds such as loud noises, knocking on the door, or whispers. 12. Ask a few questions to promote analytical thinking. What do you think will happen next?
At the end, ask children to reflect on the story with one or two analytical questions. What was your favorite part of the story? Why? And 14, always plan many follow-up activities, such as act out the story, build structures similar to those in the book, use clay or paint like the illustrator did, invent vehicles inspired by the book, or visit a similar local site, such as a lake or pond.
Now we'll watch the same video second time. This time, look for the strategies to engage children that Lambert uses while he reads. After you watch the video, one of you will read it or tell a story. To practice the strategies while the rest of you can pretend to be preschool children.
Inkuru iryoshye cyane. Yego. Who can tell us? Turi kuhabona abageni babyina. Tania na Alvin bafatanye. Ntabwo bafatanye kandi bari barimo kubyina, sibyo? Yego, twese twambara agapfukamunwa rero mbasomera. Inkuru ugiye kubasomera tugiye gusoma inkuru yitwa The 12 Dancing Princess, okay? Twese tugiye kuyitega amatwi. Reka turebe. Yes. Tubonemo abantu benshi cyane. There was one king who had 12 beautiful daughters. Ngo hariho umunsi umwe. Oya, turi gusoma igitabo. Hariho umunsi umwe umwami yari afite abakobwa bangahe?
Now that you have read or told a story, something you will do every day. What comes next? For the greatest literacy impact, choose a book or a story that was most interesting to children. Children reenact the story, perhaps on Friday or any day you plan. Just make sure they reenact a story every week.
Let's review some tips to help organize children's reenactments. These tips are in your handout too. Children tell you a list of all characters and you write them down. That way, children see how each name is spelled. Children make a list of the props and sets they need. Again, you write the words on the chalkboard or paper.
One child volunteers to narrate or read the story. In preschool, this may be a teacher. One child volunteers to be the director who coordinates the reenactment. For young preschool, this may be a teacher too. Children volunteer which character they want to play. Children design or find their own sample costumes, such as a bit of fabric or sticks. Encourage children to use their imaginations.
Children volunteer who will find or make props and sets and put them on the space that works well as a stage. Rehearse the story at least once so everyone knows what to do. Reenact the whole story from start to finish. Continue playing the story. Children may want to repeat it often because pretending stories is so much fun.
To get you into a reenactment mode, please think about the props you need to tell the story or book you choose today. You might find them here in the room or outdoors.
I'm Anita America, as I've introduced myself before. I'd like to tell you a story when I was young in primary. We used to live in Kampala, but afterwards we moved to Lakai district, Uganda. When we moved there, my mom took me to a school called Katerega Pre and Primary School. It was private school as other private school that I used to. But when I reached there for the first day, we went to reach like around 3. Our teachers corrected us and then they told us to go and look for grasshoppers, which we call insenane. I didn't know what they are, but later on I moved with others, so we moved into bushes. And then, because I didn't know what we were looking for, I found that children are looking for insects which were hiding themselves in branches of trees like this, and then they were flying. For me, I didn't know those insects which are grasshoppers. They were all filling into their bottles. Some had bottles, they are filling them inside, and then almost they all have full of bottles, and others had porcelain papers. But because for me I was very afraid, I tried to hide myself under those trees, and I didn't go back to school. What happened? Others went back to school, and then for me, I kept there hiding, and then I felt sleep. Others went back home, and then for me, I just stayed there. Others went home, and then when my mom saw other children coming home, and then it was time, she said, "Oh, where is Anita?" For me, because of course I was sleeping, and then she came running, afraid, crying, saying, "Where is Anita?" When she reached home, she found no one at school. There was only one teacher, and then she asked, "Where is Anita?" And then they were like, "Oh, all children went home. Where is she?" She said, "No, she has not come back home." And then they came to look for me in bushes. They found me sleeping. My mom was afraid, and then when she saw me, she grabbed me and hugged me, and then from that day, that was my first day and last day. Thank you.
Anita has demonstrated exactly why you don't need to worry about expensive children's books. You, as a teacher, can remember, imagine, or create a story from your culture and then tell it to children.
Just pick a story that is meaningful to them and is related to their theme, real life, or their interests. Thank you for joining us in this story adventure.